Hey guys, so today I want to focus on the writing paper for a little video. Part of the reason for this is next week I'm very much going to want to focus on the writing, and of course there will be some stuff for those of you that are working on your reading. But for those who haven't done the writing yet, I'd really like to give them a bit of an overview and focus potentially on some areas that you might want to work on. So entry level 3 at level 1 and at level 2, you are given 2 tasks. Level 1 and 2, you get 1 hour 20 to complete. And at entry 3, this will be 40 minutes, although entry 3, the tasks you complete are significantly shorter. Now, you're marked on your content and your structure. And what I mean by this is what ideas you include, how you get across those ideas, so basically what you're writing, as well as how you organize it. So thinking about here, things like if you're writing an article, it needs to sort of look like an article. So you need those layout features or those organizational features, such as a headline and an author's name. But also things like, is there a logical sequence? So if you're writing a letter of complaint, for instance, I'd expect you to talk about, I'd expect you to give a bit of background in your introductory paragraph, then maybe talk about the issue, and then finally explain what you want to be resolved. Okay, so that's your content structure, and you're also assessed here on technical accuracy. So this is your spelling, your punctuation, your grammar, and also your sentence structure. And my advice today basically boils down to remember to plan, write, and proofread. So we're going to take a bit of a look now at the writing papers. So I've taken an example from all 3 levels here. So first off, we've got the entry 3 one. Now the entry 3 starts with a short sort of alphabetical order test and plural test. And then it moves on to these. So you get activity 3, and we can see here that we've got a reasonable amount of information here. We're given, so we're told that we invite a bank manager to the place of study to talk about saving money. And again, they're looking for at least 4 complete sentences, and at least one of these sentences has to have a linking word. At entry level 3, you want to aim to write more than 4 complete sentences because of the way it's marked. I mean, for instance, we've got at least that down. So if there's any mistakes, obviously, if you've only written 4 sentences, you're not going to pass. And the same with the sentences that have a linking word. So we're talking here about our compound sentences. Do try and include more than one of those, because if you mess up once, then it makes it very difficult to sort of justify that you've done this successfully. So do aim for more than that. That is at least, not only. And as you can see here, you get a second activity, and these are thematically linked. And what I mean about this is at entry level 3, your writing activities are linked together. There's a central theme. In this case, it's money. And in this case, we're writing a short story about someone who loses some money. And again, we get our advice here. And we can see here, entry level 3, you get more marks for the second task, activity 4. Now, some of you may decide in that case to do activity 4 first, and that's absolutely fine. That's a good approach. It's worth more marks. You might want to spend more time on it. Level 1, on the other hand, as I said, 1 hour 20. And you can see here, the marks we're given is the same across both. And the tasks themselves are not thematically linked. They're not on the same topic. And we can see here, we get a writing task here. We get some bullet points. And in this case, it's to write a report. So again, we're thinking about those different layout features you might want to use, but I'll get into that in a bit. And again, just with entry level 3, you get this space below for planning and drafting. I'll get onto why that's so important in a little while. And again, you get a nice little thing here telling you what you're assessed on. So question 2 here, again, it's not thematically linked. They've given you this information, this blurb, another space for planning. Now, level 2 is different from level 1, and some of that is at the back end. So some of that is in terms of what they're testing. They're more rigorous at level 2. They expect more from you, etc., etc., etc. And some of that is at the front end as well. The writing tasks for level 2 tend to be a bit more complex. Okay, so for this instance, well, in this case, if we remember level 1, we were asked to write a short report. Level 2 here, we're actually being asked to do a fair amount, because we've been given this prompt where we've gone on to work placements, and there's a lot of information to take in here. And what we're being asked to write is more complex. We've been asked to write a comparative piece. So imagining we've gone to one work placement, then another, and comparing the two, and that is more complex, as you probably found when we've done some of the writing in class. Again, these are not thematically linked. And again, what that basically means is if you are doing level 1 or level 2 or even level 3, really, entry level 3, really, if you're looking at those writing tasks and one of them sort of jumps out at you as, you know, I can get into this, I can really get into this, you can always have a go at that first and hope some ideas pop up for the other tasks that maybe you're less sure of later. There's there's nothing to say that you have to do these in order. Okay. Now, if we quickly go back now, and what I want to look at now is planning. And planning is not going to be that different across the levels. Okay, it's really not. The things you want to remember is to use SLAP, and I'll show you what that means in a bit. And you also want to remember that they're going to give you information you need to include, but there will be stuff in there that you're going to need to come up with yourself. And you do need a plan. Planning is important because it helps you structure your work. It gives your work structure. It gives it a framework. There are not many people out there who can just sit down and write. And even the ones that can, their work will be improved if they plan. Now, you need to work out roughly how much time you want to devote to this. Level ones and level 2s, I would suggest you're probably thinking about 5-ish minutes, because if we break down that 1 hour 20, that gives you 40 minutes per task. So I'd suggest 5 to 10 minutes for planning, about 20-25-ish minutes for writing, and then 5 to 10 minutes for proofreading at the end. At entry level 3, you get less time. You expect to do those starter tasks as well, but you're writing a little bit less, and that means that you're going to spend less time planning, less time writing, and less time proofreading, and that's fine. So yeah, as I said, a plan is just a plan. Right, we're now going to have a look. I'm going to work through how I might plan a level 1 piece. Okay, so here we are, and we've got our level 1 text here, what we've been asked to look at. And it's as follows. We've been asked to write a letter of complaint. This should be fairly standard. You should be aware to lay out a letter by now, and that's absolutely, that's absolutely expected at this level. So let's just have a quick read through. And remember, what I'm looking for here is SLAP. And SLAP here stands for situation, and that is what's going on here. Layout. So the layout is what am I being expected to write? Audience, who am I writing to, and purpose. So what do I want to happen as a result of this? Okay. So reading through here, well, instantly I can sort of see that well, the situation is that I've got a computer. It stops working. You've contacted the shop. They're not particularly helpful. And I'm being asked to write a letter of complaint. Okay, so the situation is my computer's broken, I need some help. So my computer's broken, tried to get it fixed in the shop in help. Now, what does this tell me? Obviously, I'm going to go into this a bit more detail, but basically this tells me that I'm going to want to expand on these. So I'm going to need to expand. This is the beauty of SLAPs. Once you've sort of expanded this out to SLAP and you've figured out the situation, layout, audience, and purpose, the situation tells you things you need to include. The layout tells you things you need to include. The audience tells you things you need to include, and the purpose tells you things you need to include. So I need to expand on what is wrong. Computer. And by all means, I'm writing this out properly. If you write this out in notes, that's absolutely fine. It's just for your reference. So whatever works for you. I'm writing out this properly because I want to show you guys. If I was writing this out myself, if I was doing this exam, it would look a lot different. It would be quite messy. You might not be able to read it. Right. So I need to expand on what is wrong with the computer, how the shop responded, and what I want done. Okay, so that's what situation tells me. Layout, it's a letter. So I know from the fact it's a letter that I need to include addresses. Paragraphs, and again, probably an intro, information, further info, and what I want done. Sign off correctly, add a date, and maybe add a subject. Okay. My audience, okay, it's the manager of a shop. And what does this tell me? Well, I'm writing a letter of complaint, aren't I? I already know this. I'm writing to this manager, so I'm going to want to be formal. Formal tone. However, in terms of my style, in terms of how I'm writing, I'm not asking for anything here, really. I mean, you know, I'm asking for it to be resolved, but it's me with a problem here that's caused by them. So my style is going to be a bit different than if, say, I was asking for support or asking for something from, I don't know, my bank manager or my boss or something like that. So I'm going to be, I don't want to say demanding, don't want to say harsh. I'm going to be fairly, well, I'm just going to be fairly, I'm going to be fairly assertive here. I know my rights. You know, I know my rights. I know that they need to fix it. I bought it from them. We already know that the shop maybe wasn't as helpful as they could be. So I'm going to be quite assertive. You know, I'm in the right here. You know, I'm not asking for anything from them other than to basically do what they're supposed to be doing. I'm not going to be rude, but I am going to be assertive. And the purpose here is to persuade them there's a problem that needs fixing. So I'm going to provide evidence. Points. Might write and peel. And I'm also probably going to be a bit persuasive here. Use some persuasive features. Now, some persuasive features aren't going to be particularly effective here. They're not going to be right for the situation. So, for example, hyperbole, which is exaggerating something to the point of ridiculous for comic effect, is not going to be relevant here. Emotive language, however, might be. You know, I might say, you know, I'm rather distressed as this computer contains some of the, you know, some of the photographs from a family holiday. So I'm rather upset that I cannot access these. You know, bit of emotive language in there. That's absolutely fine. And that leads me on nicely to the next part of planning and actually sort of thinking about this sort of thing. So you don't necessarily need to write this down, but you sure do want to think about it. So what we're told versus what ideas we need to come up with. Okay, so we're told broken computer, shop wasn't helpful. We're also told that we need to say what we want done. Okay. Now, what ideas we need to come up with? We could say, what is wrong with the computer? So just off the top of my head, crashes to desktop whenever I try and run anything. I can't get to reboot and the mouse doesn't work properly. You know, you don't have to be as specific as I have. I've put a few things in there. In terms of this task, basically they're not going to give you something that you don't know anything about. We've all had problems with technology before, so you should be able to come up with something. Okay. What's wrong with the computer? Shop wasn't helpful. So I could say here maybe the staff treated me badly or rude. Said it wasn't their problem as I've had it and probably got a virus on it And yeah, we'll leave it at that. Yeah. And what do I want done about it? I want, well, and again, you might come up with different ideas for this, and that's absolutely fine. You know, absolutely fine. So you could have, I'm going to go with, I want the information, basically, I want the photos, videos, and documents taken from this computer. And I'd like a replacement. I don't want the same one because it went wrong. So there we go. That is basically planning. You want your situation, you lay out your audience and your purpose, and you also want to think about what you've been told to include as well as what you need to expand on. Now, there are different methods of planning, so I'm not going to go beyond this. Okay. The thing that you want to remember here is that planning should not take you too long. It shouldn't be in too much detail. You're not doing a first draft. You're sketching out very roughly what's going to happen and where. So you could use a spider diagram here, for instance, where you put a little word in the middle and little things coming away from it. That's absolutely fine. Or you could sort of just bullet point, you know, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, move through it like that. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So next we're going to move on to writing, and I want to have a bit of a look at that. And yeah, here we go. Most of your time in the exam, in the writing paper, is unsurprisingly going to be spent writing. You do want to be keeping an eye on the clock, and you want to have an idea of how much time you're going to spend on what part. I suggested basically, you know, a bit of the start, a bit of the end for planning and proofreading respectively, and then a bit in the middle. It's kind of up to you how you sort of adapt that. But like if I was doing, for instance, entry level 3, I'd want to spend at least 10 minutes on the writing. That's without the planning and proofreading per task. And at level 1 and level 2, I'd want to be spending at least 20 minutes writing. It's up to you how you arrange that elsewhere. And it rather depends on, well, how much you write on plans, for instance, and how much you need to be proofreading. And you should have a decent idea of that by now. Now, it doesn't have to be neat, okay? And that is something that is super important here. Examiners are fine with crossings out. They are fine with corrections. They are fine with little asterisks or little arrows pointing to a paragraph you decided you want to stick in underneath the introduction, okay? Another thing to remember, of course, is in the exam, you'll have a clock. You'll be able to see a clock, and it will be in the room, and you should be able to see it easily. If that's not the case, let someone know, let the invigilator know, and they will fix that for you. Now, if you happen to be writing a piece of instruction, this is much more geared towards level 1 and almost certainly level 2. What you can do here, a nice little trick, is you can go back. So just save a little bit of space. This is what I used to do all the time. So save a little bit of space and then go back and finish it. And you also want to be thinking about your plan. Do refer back to your plan. It will tell you things like your tone, how many paragraphs you're going to be writing, the overall structure of your writing. But the thing to remember here is a plan is not the same as a finished document. It shouldn't be restrictive, okay? If you get halfway through and you realize that there's something you want to add that isn't in your plan, add it, you know? Plans do change, they absolutely do change. I can't think of a single time I've sat down and written something based on a plan and it's actually came out pretty much as I was expecting on the plan. It's always some change. So I'm going to have a quick look here. I'm just going to sort of close this down. We're going to have a quick look at that task we started planning. Okay, so we're assuming here, by the way, that we've got the addresses, date, etc. at the top and the correct sign off, correct introduction. Just for the sake of, yeah. So when it comes to actually writing, do refer back to your plan, obviously. So I know that I'm going to need an introduction. So, classic one to start with. I'm contacting you regarding a computer I purchased from your shop on 5th of May 2022. And this shop is AZ Technology Supplies, but we're writing to the managing director of AZ Technology Supplies. So what we can say here is we probably need to give the location of the shop, but we don't need to specify the name of the shop because, you know, it's a chain. And in your introduction, obviously, what you're going to do, I know with my introduction, as I sort of talked it through, I want to give just a quick overview really of the situation. The computer, several problems. Unfortunately, branch. Now, you may notice here that I'm very much paying attention to my plan. So I know I need to be formal, and that is formal. You know, there's no informal language there. You've got words like unfortunately instead of sadly, purchased instead of bought, you know, contacting you, less than helpful instead of very rude. You know, I'm being formal here, I'm being polite. And you also notice that I'm being assertive. I'm not saying I think the style for less than helpful, I'm saying it as a fact, and that can be quite powerful. Okay. Now, when it comes to writing, you may remember peel paragraphs. So point, evidence, and link. Now, one thing I want to say about peel here is it's a template. It's not something you have to follow religiously. It is just a template. You may deviate from it, and that's absolutely fine. But for the sake of this, I'm going to write a peel paragraph. Okay, just because it's quite a nice little way of showing how you write a persuasive paragraph. I need to persuade this guy that the computer breaking is a problem. Before I start talking about the shop and the staff there, I need to say that the computer breaking is a problem. So I need to provide some evidence. So I'm going to start with the peel thing, which is my point. Computer I purchased stopped working properly within a week. Okay, good point. Fair enough. However, now we need some evidence to back that up with. So I need to say what happened. I need to say what went wrong. Because I mean, there's a big difference, isn't there, really, between, say, the computer being a bit slow when it's booting up compared to the computer simply not working. So I go back to the ideas, my plan, and everything like that, and I've already got it. So, whenever I try to open the program, the computer crashes desktop. I can't get it to reboot. Reboot. And you know what? This is one of those moments where I'm looking back and I'm thinking, actually, I'm going to change my plan. I don't think I need a bit about the mouse. I think we can leave it as is. So there's our evidence. Now I need to explain why that's an issue. Now this seems pretty self-evident, isn't it? You've got a computer that's not working. You need to explain why it's an issue, though. You do need to link that point to the evidence, really. So I'm going to say, as I rely on my computer to work, I'd rather. And again, I said at the start, didn't I, that I might start talking about photos being on the computer or something like that. But I've actually changed my mind. I think it's probably a bit easier if I talk about this, really. I'm rather. As I rely on my computer for work, I'm rather awkward position as I now have to commute into London to access a computer at my office. So again, we've got a bit of emotive language here. We're sort of explaining that this isn't good. This is not a great state of affairs. Now, finally, what we do is we use that link thing. And you'll see, if you have a look at the mark scheme, which I'll probably be showing you guys next week, one of the key things is students being able to show that clear link between the different points they're making, the different paragraphs they're making, and the linked sentence at the end is really useful. Because I now want to talk about my next point. I want to introduce my next point, which is what happened at the shop. Right, so I'm just going to do this. I took the computer into your branch. Okay. There we go. That's all I need. And now I've moved on to my next paragraph, and I've worked through that And then there we are. Okay. Next, we're going to look at proofreading. Right, first off, proofreading. No one likes proofreading. They really don't. I don't think I've met anyone who likes proofreading. But it needs doing. It absolutely needs doing. Do set aside time for it. There are some tips to make your life easier when it comes to proofreading, though. I'm going to quickly go through those, okay? So first off, you do want to set aside that time, make sure it's locked in, make sure it's not an afterthought. You have set time for it. Everyone makes mistakes is the other thing. However, it's more difficult to pick up on your mistakes than somebody else's. So this is how I approach it. I've always struggled with proofreading myself. I've always struggled with going back over my work, which I'm thinking in my head, right, that's done, it's finished. And looking for mistakes. I break it down. We know that we're being tested really on spelling, punctuation, grammar. So I read through spelling first. I look for spelling errors. I look for words that I know I often misspell. So for me, that tends to be words with double consonant sounds, double L's or double D's or whatever, or double M's or anything where I'm using one consonant and then the same consonant again. I know sometimes I get that wrong. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to look for those. For you, you might often get there, and there confused. So you might want to look through and look at those homophones. Absolutely fine. Then after I've done that, I'll go and I have a look at punctuation. And again, this is all about thinking about what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Okay, so do go back over work that I've marked, have a look at it, see what I'm commonly picking up, and that will help. So if, for instance, you're one of those people that really struggles with putting commas in the correct places, that's what you want to focus on. If you struggle with remembering that rhetorical questions end with a question mark, focus on that. And then grammar. And that breaks it all down a bit, and it sort of allows you to work on what you need to work on. And as I said, you should know your weak areas by now. Use that to your advantage. Okay. So if you tend to go off on tangents, it might be an idea to just give it a read through even before you start looking for punctuation, spelling, or grammar. And just make sure what you've written flows. Make sure it goes clearly from one point to the next. Okay. If you know your spelling's weak, but you're good at punctuation, then focus on that. So yeah, I mean, that's the general overview there. And that's more or less the end of the video.